All right. I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. And today I am joined by none other than the largest UFC prospect known to man. It's Mr.
Yeah.
George Smith. Hello, George. How's it going?
Hello. That is the best intro that I've ever had. And it's completely accurate as well. There is nothing inaccurate about that description.
I'd agree. I mean, if anyone looks at your Instagram stories,
You can tell.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more for me to say, really.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all there. It's all there.
And when did you start becoming a UFC prospect?
I think we should disclaim that. Yeah, so I've done bits of boxing for a while, but like you sort of boxing fitness sort of stuff, nothing interesting. And it's probably in the past year and a half that I've sort of enjoyed it a lot more. So I've got into jiu-jitsu as well. There's a lovely fella so at the gym that I used to work at Firehouse Fitness called Marius, who is a very, very talented fella that was helping me out a little bit. Just when he saw me training, we became quite good friends. I'd like to think anyway, he'd probably disagree. But yeah, just showing me like little techniques and stuff. And like so not a whole lot of training, but just sort of just practicing here and there. Yeah, I feel like it's coming along. It's getting a lot better. So probably not UFC standard, but not too bad.
So, I mean, this is something that I find interesting. Like, how do you? I've got a couple of questions really. How do you grade your progression without a coach? Is the first question.
Good question. I don't really. So I'll sort of just see how it feels. I watch UFC. I know what good looks like. I have an idea.
Sure.
And then I know when something doesn't look good when I'm doing it. I can sort of see the difference. But I can feel it. Like I know when I'm feeling fitter, when I can move a little bit better. And then just from posting stuff on Instagram, there's people like, luckily I follow and people follow me that are some quite talented people. Sean being one of them, yourself being one of them.
Sean, talented.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
And arm chokes. He's got the lot, man. He's got the lot.
Fucking hell. Jesus.
Although I would like to take the piss out of him, we can definitely take the piss out of his character.
Yeah.
Got some skills. He's got some
skills.
No,
yeah. I mean, look, all joking aside, I mean, Sean has been a really, really excellent addition to the Scramble MMA team. And I think people like Louis and people like Sam Howard will be able to sort of profess that as well. And Sean's area of knowledge is a very Sean thing, right? He took a very niche part of the sport, which is cage wrestling. Yeah. And he's then just essentially enveloped his entire life into that. And now has become somebody that's such a strange thing to become a semi-expert in, but there he is. And you know, if anyone wants to go and watch Sam Howard's last fight on Almighty, you'll see just how good Sam's cage wrestling was in that fight. And obviously that's testament to Sam as well, but I know that Sean was a big part of that. So yeah, as much as I hate him, big up Sean.
Yeah, I have to slip that in there. Yeah, one of my first sessions at Scramble, I had no idea what I was doing. I hadn't known Sean for that long, to be honest. He'd be working at Firehouse, and I didn't know him for that long. So he sort of just mentioned, like, oh, yeah, I do a little bit of jiu-jitsu, that sort of stuff. I walk in, and Mark Diakese is there. Mark Diakese, UFC fighter.
Yeah.
So I didn't know him at the time, but sort of explained to me who he was, and I'm like, right, okay, I saw some videos and that. And then he's just rolling with him, and
you have some guys that give you some feedback on your Instagram videos.
Yeah, so it's although I've been to like odd boxing gyms and that. I've done little bits, but it's mostly been like boxing fitness sort of stuff. Sure. So I'm definitely not an expert by any means. But I do just genuinely enjoy it. Like this is the sort of stuff that I enjoy, even if it is just moving about a bag. But I do want to evolve that to the next level. So I know that to get any better, I need to do more sparring. I know that.
Sure.
Flinch anytime doing any sparring or anything like that. But the only way to get over that is to do more sparring. So luckily, there is people that I know that can help me with that. Obviously, COVID has put a bit of a ruiner on that. So just after I joined Scramble, I was getting a lot of tattoos finished, so I sort of missed a big bit of training there. I was like, I'll get all my tattoos done and I can get back to it. And then sort of COVID were kicking off, so I've sort of missed a long bit of it. So I've sort of just been trying to keep myself ticking over with fitness stuff, usual S&C stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, the other question I have, and maybe this will loop into my answer, is like, how do you, rather than how do you grade progression, but how do you learn? How do you pick up new things that you want to try without a regimented coach or class to go to? Other than like just watching an MMA or a Bellator event or
Bit of a Max Holloway sort of situation.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, let's dive into that for the people that don't know it, right? So Max Holloway, for the first sort of 7 years of his pro career, didn't have a coach. He was just
Mental.
picking stuff off the game. He was playing the UFC game and was like, "Oh, that's a cool combo," and then just drilled it on the bag and hit it in the actual cage. Like, come the fuck on! Like, that stuff's ridiculous.
Mental.
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you pick stuff up?
It is sort of a similar idea, just not to the extent. It's just those tiny little progressions. It's watching videos, seeing like a cool combo, something like that. And to be honest, if you watch me on the bag or anything, it's nothing interesting other than this like spinning back kick that I've been failing to do for a while now. Most of it is all pretty simple stuff, just my 1-2. It's just moving properly. It's sitting my weight in the right place. It's just not making silly mistakes, which is hard to do without a coach, which is why I film a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I can identify when something, like I said, I know what good looks like. So I can sort of identify when something doesn't look good. And it is just a case of doing stuff over and over and over again, trying not to make bad habits.
Yeah, because I think the thing for me is, and especially in these sorts of things, in grappling and in striking sports, is a lot of it is feel. You have to feel what it should feel like or what should happen until you then be like, okay, the way that I'm asking my body to execute this thing is wrong, right? And that takes a lot of attrition and it takes a lot of notice, I think. And that's something coming from a striking background. Like, I can watch you and I can be like, oh, he's doing this really well, but this could be a little bit better. And I can feel in my body how it should feel. But to explain that to somebody is very difficult. Yeah. So, and the sparring thing, I think, is huge as well. The thing about learning things from the internet and watching MMA and stuff is it's like, that's all cool, but
can only get you so far.
Does it work in actual sparring? I mean, picking stuff up from fights is fine because, I mean, obviously it works in sparring.
Yeah.
But what works for you and what works for somebody else is totally different. And, we can't all be Max Holloways, right? So I think, though, it's really interesting to see what you've been able to teach yourself, essentially, via just videos and watching Instagram. Like, I think that's really, really interesting. And it goes to show a little bit about your learning style, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. Potentially. I think skill acquisition, the beginner stuff, I think I'm reasonably good at. I'd say I'm too young to know how I am at mastering things yet because I haven't done anything for long enough to know. But I think getting the basics down, I do reasonably well. I'm trying to learn lots of different things. There's something that Louis actually touched on. Louis Blair. Is that how you say his last name? I've known him for a while. I don't even know if
Louis Blair,
his name right. So he touched on another podcast. I can't remember which podcast it was. Essentially about being one-dimensional. How he doesn't identify himself as a PT. This is something that I definitely did for a while, and then there wasn't much else. Sort of made a habit of trying to explore different things and be a little bit more interested. I'm trying to learn French. That's not going very well, but we're progressing. Trying to learn guitar. That's getting a little bit better. So it's not just I'm a PT and there's not much else to it. I'm trying to have different interesting things about myself.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely something to that, right? Like Louis spoke a little bit on the podcast with me about how he doesn't identify himself as a fighter either. He doesn't really identify himself as anything.
Yeah, this is what he said. Yeah,
he's just a man that runs around and he fights because he wants to fight. It's not because he is a fighter, right? And I think that's really, really important, and a really important distinction. Something that you find in all facets of life where people come to some form of mastery or they get some form of notoriety, I guess.
Yeah.
Based on a skill, then it becomes part of their identity. And I think that's something that's quite important to sort of stray away from as much as you can. Like Nietzsche says, to not worship any false idols, right? And it's kind of like placing yourself on a pedestal as a thing, like for instance, a PT for you or me as like a podcaster or whatever it is. That becomes difficult because if for whatever reason your ability to train people personally is taken away from you, then what are you? Nothing? Well, that can't be true, right? Exactly.
Exactly.
And I think it's interesting as well that you diversify from things away from physical training too. And I think that's probably really important because
that's my thing.
Because like you can obviously, but to me, you shouldn't look at the world just merely through one lens.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're looking at things through a personal training perspective, you're looking at things through learning a different language, you're learning things through looking from a musical perspective. Like, I think that's super beneficial, right?
Definitely agree. I don't want to be boring, essentially. Not even as much for how I appear to other people, because I think everyone goes through the phase of constantly being worried about what other people think, and a lot of people still do.
Of course.
I think that was definitely my high school stage, and really worried about what people think. And I think I've come out of that. It is to make myself a better person, and so I'm trying to do that in as many ways as possible, trying to diversify.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're in a position now. I mean, for me especially, the thing that I've noticed mostly over this lockdown has been the ability for people to do their jobs from one singular position. But the other problem I've seen is that a lot of people, or it's been shown that a lot of people's jobs aren't as necessary as maybe we thought they were. And I think that what that will lead to eventually is the need for people to be multifaceted and to be able to have revenue streams that isn't just one specific skill. And, that comes to point about yourself, for instance, is why would you allow yourself to be 1D essentially? Because if for whatever reason, even from a monetary perspective, not even thinking about from a personal perspective, if from a monetary perspective, you're no longer able to gain revenue via that one stream, what do? Right? Do you just become homeless and live on the street? Like, hopefully not, right?
This is something that COVID has shown a lot. So when in the fitness industry, when COVID first kicked off, and this sort of bugged me a little bit, and there's a lot of problems with the fitness industry, to be honest. I don't want to slag it off too much, but there is a lot of problems with it. What happened was every single PT and fitness instructor and anyone that just sometimes goes to the gym put a bodyweight home workout on. I was honestly just sick of seeing it. Like, it was just every single post was, do this home workout. And so I posted a video essentially just explaining, well, this isn't a home workout, but you have to understand the principles behind stuff and not just do things for the sake of doing things. So I posted a couple of videos about it. James Smith PT does a really good explanation of this, which is essentially there's a principle. So I'll use calorie deficit as an example because fat loss is all the rage. There's the principle, which is what gives people what they want. And then there's a product, and then there's the consumer. So if the person's selling something, personal training or a product or anything like that, just shows them the principle, then there's nothing to sell. They don't make any money.
Sure.
So they need to have that middle. Well, I say need to. They choose to make more money. So they set. This is all the fit teas and the booties and all that shite. Anyway, there was a point to this. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with it, but yeah, there's a lot of problems with the fitness industry. So I was sort of just trying to explain the same as James Smith PT does. This is the principle. Sort of think outside the box. It's not just about how many bicep curls can you do and like not eating for 3 days so you can lose weight.
Yeah, and I think that's something. I mean, look, I think I agree. I don't really have too much of an understanding of the fitness industry other than being an outside consumer. But I think that, there are people that do it well, and there are people that are clearly in it to make money, right? And I think that what coronavirus has shown, if nothing more, is a very, very clear delineation between the people that are in it to make money and the people that are in it because they actually care about the job. So yeah. I don't know too much about James Smith, but the two PTs that I follow are yourself and Louis, right? And the thing that Louis was doing was interesting, and that was he was putting on workouts, but essentially all he was doing is he was filming his own workout that he was going to do in the day anyway. And he basically said to people, like, if you want to join me, feel free. And afterwards,
that's it. There's a big difference there.
There's a big difference.
There's a difference between Yeah, between like, this is what you should do. This is like for fat loss and for all that sort of stuff. This is what you should do. Versus Louis, who's actually educated and can actually answer questions in what to do.
Exactly. And
Versus
at
just
the
being
end
like,
of,
this is the exact thing.
yes, and at the end of his workout, he was doing Q&As, as you've just said, and he was offering
Perfect. Yeah.
the chance for people to be like, why do you do this? Or why are we doing this? Or how can I do this? Or this was too difficult. Is there an easier version? Or this was too easy. Is there a more difficult version? Et cetera, et cetera. And I think that sort of organic material, I guess, which is such a shit overused term
Genuine.
in, yeah, genuine. Ugh, Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do think that the fitness industry, and I talked to Louis a little bit about this, but it's just so saturated, and it's so difficult to find somebody that is in alignment with what you want, but isn't selling you Nick Diaz Wolf tickets. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And for you as a PT, how do you combat that?
So people often say that the fitness industry is diluted with personal trainers, and to a certain extent it is. It is honestly stupidly easy to get a PT qualifications. Too easy. It's I don't know exactly. I did mine slightly different. I did mine through college and an apprenticeship and all that sort of stuff. But I'm pretty sure it's like a couple of weekends. You give them a boatload of cash, and then off you go. The amount that they teach you on it is nothing. So this does create a big pool of personal trainers that don't know what they're talking about,
Right.
which is a bad thing because there's a lot of people that know even less than them. So they see them as their superior, but they're teaching them bad things. And then this is where there's a lot of problems. For me as a personal trainer, it's almost a good thing because you show them that you actually know what you're talking about, and you're knowledgeable and you know how to carry over that knowledge to them and not just say a load of big words. It allows me to get above the vast majority of personal trainers. But like I said, when you look at the whole grand scheme, some of the eating habits and training habits of personal trainers that you'd see is awful. People crash dieting and stuff like that. And then this is another problem with social media, like just to have how you're portrayed on social media. But that's a whole other conversation about social media and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to probably have that conversation because I think that, you know, social media is probably one of the vehicles or one of the mechanisms that has been both really, really positive for the personal training industry, but also really, really negative because, as you say, if somebody can get into a certain shape, and they put PT in their name, people will automatically trust them over somebody that may have 20 years of experience but not look the same way. And you know, I mean, how do you combat that when we're in a situation in a world where it's so easy to get drawn into this Instagram vitriol, right?
Mm-hmm. I think everyone's gone through that. Like when I first, people I used to work at Firehouse with used to always absolutely rinse me for this. But when I first started Instagram, so this was before I was a personal trainer. This is when I was sort of working towards it. I used to think, right, I need like the perfect name, and I'm going to try and get a sponsorship. I used to call myself, you ready for this? Baby to Beast. Because I was like, right, this is perfect. I'm small, I'm a baby, I'm going to be big, and then I can apply. Oh, honestly, I can apply it to clients. Like they can go from a baby to a beast. And I'm thinking, this is perfect. I'm going to get sponsored. I'm going to have 1 million followers on Instagram. It's all going to be perfect. And then you soon realize how cringy and awful that is. And I did slowly transition out of that. But that was definitely not a good stage to look back on. But yeah, social media, it's so easy to get drawn into it. So again, like you said, it is a really, really good tool if it's used properly. But there's a lot of people abusing it, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, where do I even begin? I think that it's such a dichotomy, and it's such a hypocritical statement because I am just as addicted to the likes of Instagram and Twitter as everyone else is.
Yeah.
But I do wish that I wasn't. And
I hate it. Yeah.
I will make excuses until the cows come home, like, oh, I need it for the podcast, for instance, or oh, I need it to help me connect with people for Pantheon, and all of these are generally legitimate reasons. But then there isn't a legitimate reason for me halfway through my workday just finding myself scrolling through people's stories, right?
Mhm.
Like that's not a legitimate reason at all. I'm not doing anything to do with Pantheon. I'm not doing anything to do with the podcast. I'm just wasting my time.
Yeah. This is why I really, really enjoy this podcast that you set up, like the idea behind it, because you don't have conversations like this all the time, like where you're not on your phone, so I do really enjoy this. Like these sort of conversations, the people that I've been working on shift with, you'd have some, because you're at work, so sort of in between class and stuff like that, you'd have some really in-depth conversations, and even when it's opposite viewpoints and opposite opinions, but you're both adults and you just have an enjoyable conversation, even though you might disagree with each other. Really enjoy that sort of stuff. So I'm glad that you've set something like this up. So I do listen to them, and I do enjoy conversations like this.
I mean, you're very kind. Thank you. I mean, I said this on multiple podcasts now, but the real reason that I set this up was because of that exact reason. I have enjoyable conversations with people about a number of topics in my personal life, and if I enjoy them, it may well be that there is an appetite for other people to enjoy them. Now,
Yeah.
the supply and demand of that is really a variable, and I don't really know what the supply and demand of that is. I just put them out because I enjoy them, and if people listen, then that's fine. If they don't, then equally that's fine, right? But yeah, like I agree. I think that this is something that, especially with the opposing viewpoints thing, like it's important to have conversations with people that disagree with you. It really,
Definitely.
really is. And it's important to have conversations with people that agree, but have a different avenue to agreeing with you, if that makes sense. Like, me and you may both have an opinion on personal training or Instagram or whatever it is, but we both have different sets of beliefs that take us there. And as you've previously stated in the podcast, like having an opinion or having a difference to yourself, having a different side, having a different facet, having a different skill or a different exposure to something will only make you a more well-rounded person in some fashion. So that's one of the reasons why I do this, is because I enjoy it. It will help me to round out myself, essentially, and hopefully help to round out other people by me just chatting shit about stuff,
Yeah, definitely. Good to expose yourself to lots of different areas of life.
I agree, and I think that's something. One thing that you were talking about before that really struck out to me is not doing it because you don't have a perfect name, or you don't have a perfect brand, or you don't have 1 million followers on Instagram. Like, I've wanted to do this podcast for so long, but again, never put the work in to find out how to do it, and equally would deliberate about names until I was blue in the face, right? And I think this is something that's similar to all avenues. And I wanted to touch on this about the PT industry, like where I think one of the big problems in the PT industry is people are coming to you for a reason, and mostly that reason is built from insecurity, right? Because they're not happy with how they look or what they can lift.
Yeah.
Exactly. Vulnerability. Exactly. How do you combat that as a PT? How do you combat that?
So again, it's going to be quite cliche, but it is just being genuine. Like, unfortunately, it's hard to see because people are good actors, especially when it comes to earning money. They can act the socks off. But I think as you get down the line, the people that are actually genuine, and you can see that, they in theory should do quite well. So it is just showing I'm not just doing this for money. And like, I used to have just these conversations. I was like, it's really weird because you do make friends with your clients. Like, you see them quite often, and you'll see them outside of sessions in the gym and all that. So you make friends with them, but they have to hear you, the actual business side of it. Because like, you'll have a great induction with someone, you'll take them around the gym, you'll show them what they need to do, they'll sign up for some sessions, and it's like, I need you to pay me now. And it's a little bit weird. So like, to really evolve being a personal trainer, I do probably need to be better at sales. But again, I'm confident that if the passion's there and I'm like dead set on education's a big thing, I do genuinely enjoy learning, which I hope shows with my clients. But yeah, just genuinely caring about stuff. And again, it sounds quite cliche, but genuinely caring about your clients and not just being like, how can I get more money out of them?
Yeah.
I think in theory it should show those people should do well, but who knows?
I think so. And that's where I think I hate to use the word hope, but I'm going to use the word hope. Like that's kind of where my hope lies for PTing, is that it is a meritocracy, and it is that the people that really have the inbuilt passion to want to help and change people's lives for the positive via the vehicle of personal training and physical training, that they will eventually rise to the top, either via word of mouth, either via Instagram, either via whatever it is. Like, I do wish that does come to fruition, and you know, I see that in yourself, I see that in Louis, and
thanks, sir.
You know, like and equally for people like Tom Walker, who I've had on this podcast before, like people that put out information for free for the benefit of putting information out, phenomenal.
Definitely. And again, it should come back to you like double. So yeah, I spoke to Tom a couple of times after seeing him on your podcast, and he's a nice guy. He's a very, very knowledgeable guy as well.
He is.
So hopefully I have many conversations with him in the future.
Another guy that I should point out, who was just a phenomenal wealth of knowledge, is Matt Connolly. I don't know if you listened to that episode.
I've got a bad memory.
Yeah, I'd go back and listen to it if you haven't. Like Matt Connolly he now trains personal trainers essentially. He coaches coaches. That's what he does. But yeah, he's just a phenomenal bath of physical training knowledge. The thing I was going to ask is why did you even bother to get into the role in the first place? Like, if you're like me, I've been in and out of weights gyms since I was 15, 16, never really stuck with it. As you can see, I'm not in any really decent shape. And then I fell upon a martial art that I fell in love with or fell back in love with, I guess. But why PTing? What's the point?
So I started out, coming from school, I'm not thick, but I did all right, B's and C's, like enough to get me by. I originally wanted to join the police. I know you wanted to join the police as well. Everyone, all I kept hearing from people was, oh yeah, I wanted to be in the police when I was younger and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to be one of them where like I say I want to be a police officer and then never do. I did end up being one of those people, unfortunately. So during college, I was doing like bits of labouring on building sites and that sort of stuff, painting and decorating. And one of my dad's friends, I was helping out with him doing like pressure washing, so like just cleaning properties and that sort of stuff. I don't know, I might want to get into like electrics or something like that. And it was like, oh, my brother has a company setting up alarms and that sort of stuff. Like, oh, sweet. And then before I knew it, I was in an apprenticeship doing, I was an apprentice alarm engineer.
Nice.
So like a lot of my family are all in trades, electricians, ceiling fitters, all that sort of stuff. So it was sort of just seemed like the natural progression. I was in it for a couple of months and it was just honestly awful. Like I just hated it. And it just wasn't for me at all. It was just because I'm lazy, to be honest. There was just a lot of carrying stuff.
It's interesting coming from a PT, right?
Yeah. So usually like in a job, I'd not just like quit after 2 start of principal, but because it was an apprenticeship, he was like setting up college and setting up all this other stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna fuck him over a little bit if I don't let him know now. So I just let him know, and then ended up leaving. And then I ended up being a glass collector for a little bit. That was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. Yeah. So about 16, nearly 17 at this point. And then all I was really doing was just going to the gym and then going back to work. A lot of problems with PTs who just like, oh, I enjoy going to the gym, then I'd be a good personal trainer. Unfortunately, it's not quite that simple, because getting the information that you know, again, just saying a lot of big words and principles and all that sort of stuff, that's not the challenging bit. Having the knowledge you need it, obviously, but it's how you express that knowledge. And I don't want to say dumb it down, but simplify it in a way that somebody that's a complete beginner to the gym understands. You learn little like cues, like when someone's learning how to hinge from the hips, you say, "Oh, I'm putting a rope around your hips and someone's going to pull it from behind." Like just little cues like that, that rather than being like, "Oh, if you anteriorly rotate," little tricks like that to express knowledge. That I had a bit of a, I don't want to say natural, like this is the luck conversation that you always go on to about. So I don't want to say I was lucky, but again, when you enjoy something, you put more effort into it. Like forcing someone to do something when they don't enjoy it is not going to work. Same as trying to help a client lose weight that doesn't want to lose weight is just not going to happen. So I enjoyed training, but I enjoyed biology in school. I enjoyed looking into biomechanics. I was already researching this sort of stuff. So I spoke to one of the personal trainers at the gym, ended up working with him a little bit later down the line as well. And sort of asked him what route I want to go down to be a PT. So I ended up going to college to do fitness instructing. And when I got there, again, not to be big-headed, it wasn't that I was very good at it. It was just most of the other people was very bad at it. So for example, the tutor was doing an exercise. He's like, "Oh, what muscle is this?" And I'd name it. And everyone's like, "Oh, whoa, how did you know that?" And it's like, I'm not that good at it. It's just everyone is really bad at it. So I finished that course. I did my work experience at Firehouse. They offered me a job. They offered me an apprenticeship. And that company was, I think, what go too deep into that. That company was interesting. But anyway, got a lot of good experience from that. So like, I got a good amount of PT hours in, working on shifts as well, teaching a lot of classes, just speaking to people, like just doing more of work. A lot of experience from that. So it was an extremely, extremely valuable time.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's a ton of points in there. The first one is luck doesn't exist. I'm sorry, like I will probably take this to the grave, right? But yeah, I just like what you've said is all of your natural inclinations that you had in school before you even knew that PT was a thing. You know, you were interested in these kinds of things, and then you went to the gym, and then you yada yada yada. There's a very clear progression there. Now, of course, you could have chosen at many points to not follow that progression. You could have chosen to stay and be an alarm engineer and, you know, flit away your life if that's what you'd chosen, right? Now, you know, thankfully you didn't choose that. You're doing something that you get value from, you get meaning from, you get benefit from. Amazing. Like those are things that not a lot of people can state, right? That they make a living doing something that they actually enjoy. I think in the same vein, like with the Firehouse stuff, like you obviously, like the thing that's probably most important for somebody that's just starting out in PT, being a PT, is learning how to communicate with people, right? Because as you say, it must be really awkward to begin with to be like, "Oh yeah, so here's all the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your credit card?" Like,
yeah, it is weird,
right? Because people forget that it's a transaction. And I think that this is something that's really difficult because it's seen as a service, right? In the same vein that when you go to, I don't know, like if you go to a spa and you have your nails done, you have a massage, you have this or that, like it's seen as a service.
Yeah.
But with a PT, because as you say, you become friends with these people.
You do, yeah.
And you actually genuinely care about them and their life outside of the gym.
Yeah.
That it's then weird to be like, because you wouldn't say to your mate like, "Oh, that's 60 quid, please," or whatever it is, right? So to them, there's a very weird dichotomy there, and you have to have that professional / personable abilities, right? So I imagine something like Firehouse, where it's a small enough gym, you know, it's not one of these massive 3,000 people gyms, you know, where you're going to just get swallowed up, but instead you can hone that craft, was probably really important. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well that you spoke to a PT that you then turned out to work with, right? That's a nice little full circle, right? Nice little full circle.
Yeah. When what's the saying? When your idols become your rivals. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
About as cliche as it gets.
Yeah. But the way I sort of got around the money thing was just being straight up with people. Like I'd have these conversations where I literally said this. I was like, it's weird because like you become friends with people, but if you don't pay me, I don't see you. Like that's very, very strange. But that's just the sort of way I got around it, where if you just acknowledge it and be like, yeah, this is a business, unfortunately, but I'm not just doing this for money, and just explain it. People appreciate honesty.
Because that's the other thing, right? Is it's like there's a guilt in there. There's a bit of guilt laced in that sentence.
Yeah.
And it's so strange because it's like, okay, so you want somebody, you're coming to the gym because you want somebody that's professional and that's more knowledgeable than you are to guide you through the process. Cool. Why is that for free though? Like, you know, you're paying, and this is where it gets a little bit squirrely, is because they're paying X amount for a membership to the gym, meaning they're allowed to walk through the door, right?
Yeah.
Cool. What a lot of people then say is, oh, well, the staff are paid by me having a gym membership because I can walk through the door. That's paying for the staff to be here. Whereas for a lot of places, that's just not the case, right? And that's something that gyms fail to really publicize.
Yeah.
So when you see a George Smith, aka UFC prospect, aka Baby to Beast founder,
I regret saying that now.
No, you fucking don't. Like when you see you walking around the gym, they're like, oh, it's cool. He's on a salary paid by the gym and I pay for him. No, that's not the case in a lot of ways, right? A lot of it is commission based and a lot of it is you pay to rent space. Essentially, you're also renting your ability to walk through the door to then earn some money. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that does need to be spoken about a little bit more, and the barriers of that need to be modified a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an important position to be in, to be in something that you've been and you've done all of the things. You've been and you've collected glasses and you've knocked around a few apprenticeships. You've done some laboring, you pick some heavy shit up and put it back down again, and now you get paid for it. Like, you know, I think that it's a good progression story, and it's a way that you'll be able to connect with your clients to be like, look, I've done other shit too. Like, I'm not just a man that walked into an apprenticeship walked into a center, paid a couple of grand and walked out with the certificate and now I'm stood in front of you. Like, it's not like that.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I hope that shows. But the problem with it is, like I said, people are good actors, so it is sometimes hard to see that. But there's something I want to go on as well about having a purpose in life. Yeah. So this like sort of ties into the religion stuff, but this is essentially all I want is just to. I think this is what everybody wants, is just to have a purpose in life, to feel like you are part of something bigger. I feel like that from personal training, although this is not the end point for me, I do want to progress onto. I'll probably end up in physiotherapy, maybe strength and conditioning, something like that. But again, the idea is there's a purpose of me trying to help other people. And I think this is where religion comes into a lot of things, is people want a purpose. They want to feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah, I think that's quite an astute claim. Like, I think that purpose and meaning are really important to having a positive human experience. And you know, I spoke to Dave Lawson previously a couple of episodes ago about this, and his point was less about what you want to do, but more about what's meaningful to do. And you know, the conversation that comes back to my mind is an interview with Dan Bilzerian. Now, if you don't know who Dan Bilzerian is, go and look at his Instagram and you'll know everything you need to know, right?
I know who he is, yes.
Yeah, I know you do, but I'm talking about for anyone listening. But like, the point that Dan made, Dan's a millionaire, right? Multi-millionaire, owner of plenty of businesses, and he lives a life that from the outside looks lavish and luxury and leisureful and all this sort of stuff. But when he was asked about what does he prefer, like what was enjoyable about it, he was like, the life is fine, but there's no better time than when you're chasing it, when you're earning it, when you have that drive, that purpose, that meaning to get to somewhere. There's no better time than that, right? And I think that one of the keys to this life in my very short 27 years is always having something that's in front of you that gives you that reason to chase. And it may not even always be explicit, right? It could be very woolly, and it's probably shit if it is woolly, because it's difficult to quantify and achieve something that's woolly. But for yourself, like, you have these sort of woolly aspirations of, oh, maybe it will be S&C, maybe it will be physio, maybe it will be, but what you do know is that the purpose right now is to help as many people as possible in the vicinity that I can. And I think that that's something that's really, really important. And like you say, we'll talk about tribalism and all this sort of stuff. And that is one of the roots of why people can be indoctrinated into religion, is that they want to feel part of something. And off air, we were speaking about what we'd been looking at and listening to recently, and you were touching on Stoicism, and we'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things, so I recently read a book called War by Sebastian Junger. Have you ever read it?
I've heard of it, but no, I've never read of it.
So essentially, he's out from like late 2000s to late 1990s to early 2000s, and he's following the American soldiers in the Afghan war, in the Afghan invasion, and they're in a place called Korangal. That's probably pronounced improperly, but that's how it's read to me. Yeah, like Korangal, the Korangal Valley in Afghanistan, and it's one of the most violent places in the whole war, simply because of its connections to what's called the Pesh River, and then equally the border to Pakistan. And he follows this what's called battle company through their tours of Afghan, and he follows them over a year. And just the sheer tribalism and the sheer meaning of your life is literally governed by keeping other people alive, when there is mortar shells and sniper shots and AKs firing at you. Like, it doesn't get any more visceral than living for somebody else. Being in a tribe, having a meaning and a purpose, is to wake up every day, either by your own accord or because somebody's lobbed a grenade into your base, right? Like, there is very little that you can put above that. It's almost like a drug in a sense. And a lot of guys talk about it like that in the book, is that there's no higher feeling that I can get than in the middle of a firefight, when I am literally protecting the guys next to me so that they can go home to their families in 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is. And to your point about meaning and whatever, like, we adopt a meaning. We allow ourselves to introduce meaning and purpose to our lives, either via a podcast, a PT, whatever it is. You pick it, whatever it is. And we should be grateful that we've decided to be positive about those meanings and purposes, right? Because people may choose negative meanings and purposes to the way that their life is moving. But with the guys out in war, essentially out in Afghanistan and in the Korangal Valley, and the people that were represented in that book, like, there was almost no choice. There was no choice but to adopt the meaning and purpose that was in front of them, because eventually a firefight was coming to them, either on patrol when they chose to initiate with the enemy, or when the enemy chose to initiate with them, right? And I think that illuminates to me especially how important it is, not just to have kinship and friendship and have love for other people, but also to have a purpose and have goals that are really rigid, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't as aware of their mortality. Like, life is short, man. And like, luckily I know this at my young age, but life is short. So like, I'm trying to make the most of it. So it's sort of nothing too exciting going on at the moment, but it's stepping stones. I know where I want to go. I know what purpose I want to have. Trying to educate myself, but yeah, man, life is short. Like, I'm very aware of my own mortality.
And I think that the thing that's important about that is, it seems to me that it's actually nothing to do with where you want to get to. It's how you get there. And it's what you do during the time that you're taking to get there. So for instance, you're like, oh, life is short. I agree. You're aware of your immortality. I agree. And you're like, I've got places that I want to go. But the problem with that is, when you get there, one of the greatest examples of this is Chris Weidman, right? You know what I'm about to say? Chris Weidman beats Anderson Silva, right?
Mm.
wins the middleweight title. This is something that he has literally dreamt about for 20 plus years. He's grown up watching Anderson fight. He then gets to fight him, beats him, wins the title.
Mm.
And he tells the story of he goes back to the locker room, the middleweight title is strapped around his waist, and he looks in the mirror and he's like, is this it?
Yeah, very, very similar to Tyson Fury's story as well.
Exactly.
Very, very similar in that, like, he hit a very, very low depression there. So it is scary. So you need to really make the most of it. But I think it does mention this in Stoicism as well, how you need to appreciate the present. If it's not in Stoicism, it's in some other book that I've read. But like, if you're always looking to the future, you never appreciate in the present. So you do, but it is hard to do. Like, it's easy saying that, but like actually being able to do that, it is difficult. Very, very difficult, because you're always looking at what's going wrong and how you need to fix what's wrong, and there's work, and there's always something to distract you. It's hard to appreciate being in the moment.
I agree, and I think that it's also difficult to learn how to be in the moment, right? Because then you get into this, as with everything there's an economy behind it, and you know, how often have you heard like being the presence of mind or the stillness or this or that sold to you in some ebook or some course or some lecture or whatever. And it's extremely difficult for you to, again, determine what's genuine, what's going to be helpful, and what's important to get you to where you supposedly want to be, right? And the idea of presence of mind and being in the moment and all this sort of stuff and appreciating the moment sounds amazing on paper until you ask somebody to do it. And
like, well, how?
Right, exactly. And the doing of that thing is always more difficult than what it is on paper, and that's the same in practice. But I think for me, I think it's more just appreciating what you have, rather because like you say, I have no idea how to be quote unquote present in the moment. I've got no idea how to, you know, smell the roses as they're there necessarily, other than, you know, by setting yourself these small goals. Let's just say your goal for outside of coronavirus time is I want 15 regular clients, right? Well, when you get regular clients, those 15 regular clients, you can say to yourself, oh, cool, like that's good.
Yeah.
And actually appreciate it, rather than straight away being like, okay, cool, well, I now need 25 clients, or I now need 35 clients, or whatever it is. And I think that for somebody like Weidman, especially, who stood in front of the mirror and was like, is this it? Like, I expected to feel a lot better than this after all this culmination of work, is that the answer is the work. The answer isn't the goal. It's always the work. And the same with Fury. Like, the problem that you're going to have with a Tyson Fury, especially now, is if he does beat Anthony Joshua and he does beat Deontay Wilder, and
he will,
let's say he beats them twice, right? So he really puts a stamp on it that he is the unified heavyweight champion of the world. What happens? Who do you beat? There's no other questions to answer, right?
I really hope that having gone through the ups and the downs, that he's sort of had to think about this and he's figured it out for himself. But who knows? It's a complicated, like, your mind is very complicated, very, very complicated.
Of course. And my question to you would be, you know, getting himself out of that rut is one thing, but then you have to put yourself back in the mindset of a challenger, of a fighter. And that's a very different mindset, I think, to somebody that's really introspective and looks at their own mortality and whatever. Because look, if you're going to get into a ring with Deontay Wilder, you're not thinking about your mortality. I'm sorry, you're not. Like,
nah.
You're just not. And the same with Anthony Joshua. Like, any of these big men, one shot can change everything. Look, did you watch Dylan White, Alexander Povetkin?
I did. I won a good bit of money on it, actually. Yeah.
Right. Then you will have seen that for 4 rounds, it looked like Povetkin was going to be finished relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a shovel punch from hell, and it was over, right?
Always a puncher's chance. This is something why I feel like I enjoy boxing so much, although it's definitely not my specialty in life. But you can't think about anything else. As soon as you switch off for a second, you're going to get punched in the face.
Exactly.
Like, you can't switch off for a second. You always have to be there. So as long as there's all the other benefits as well, fitness and knowing how to defend yourself and all that sort of stuff. Just the actual activity, like just being distracted from everything. You can't check your phone. You can't think about what you're having for tea like that. Like, you have to think right now. And that's it. That's one of the many reasons why I'm a big boxing.
Do you worry about head trauma?
So this is also similar to me and running and knee injuries. Like, I think it's definitely something I think about. So, like, I bought a head guard at one point, and I was wearing, like, me and Sean were doing some sparring and stuff, and like, so yes, it's definitely something I think about. But I think the benefits of boxing far outweigh the potential risks of when you're older. Like, I'd much rather have a very, very enjoyable 50 years of doing whatever I want. And again, this comes into stoicism. I'll go on to that in a second. Of having a very, very enjoyable 50 years than living till I'm 90 of just being like, oh, I hurt my head. So, like, stoicism talks about the middle point between essentially what very, like, strict Christianity does, how, like, no sex before marriage, all this sort of stuff, and being very, very restrictive because they see anything that's enjoyable as a bad thing, essentially. Again, I don't know a whole lot about Christianity, so I don't want to go too much into that. But and then not going too far, just being gluttonous and just eating whatever you want. So if you're just like, oh, life's short, I'll just eat what I want and get really fat, and I'll like do like there's a very, very fine line between those two. So I always try and restricting myself for a purpose, being like, right, well, if I don't eat this, then I can blah blah. Versus, I'll just life's short, I'll do what I like. Very fine line.
So, I think for me, I agree. My opinion on that fine line, however, is that whether you're going to live 50 good years or 90 good years is obviously up for debate about various other variables than just just head trauma. But for me, and equally, I don't imagine that you'll take the volume of head trauma that somebody like a Muhammad Ali or whatever else is going to take. However, there is something to be said for any concussions to the brain, right? Any knocks to the brain, because and in amateur boxing as well, and I mean amateur is in not at the level where you're actually fighting amateur, because some of those amateur guys are fucking phenomenal. But I mean, when you're just starting out as an unskilled, quote unquote, boxer, I'd say you're actually more liable to big damage, because people are gonna just swing and they're not knowing their own power, and they're not knowing their own physicality, and they're not knowing this and that and the next thing. And somebody's probably going to get hurt in that process. And the thing that I worry about is, excuse me, sorry, is one, that it's you, right? But equally, like, there's a mindset which is similar to what you've said, is how I would take the stoicistic or the stoicism line of the middle is, first of all, I wouldn't have bought a head guard, that's for sure. And second of all, I think I would try to limit as much as possible the sparring that I have, unless I want to be a professional fighter, right? Because if you think about your job role and your eventual job role, we're talking an S&C coach or a physiotherapist. Both of those are heavily reliant on the knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
If somebody's knocked that knowledge out of your ear, you're not going to be as proficient as you would be with that knowledge, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. But again, there's a fine line. So
of course.
I know I'm not going to be doing enough sparring, and I'm too good anyway. No one hits me. Sean definitely doesn't hit me.
I mean, UFC prospectors for
exactly. The bad cat hit back, right? So I know I'm not going to do enough sparring and getting enough hits for it to be really a problem. Like, I know it could be a problem, but again, you have to weigh up risk versus reward.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is not going to be my profession. I know I'm not going to be a professional boxer or a professional MMA fighter or whatever. So I understand you have to take that into account. I think it's worth the small risk that it is. The enjoyment and the skill that I'm learning and the confidence that you build from it is worth the, oh, well, if you take too many hits, maybe when you're 70, you might forget something. Like, I'm willing to take that risk, essentially. But people that do a hell of a lot of sparring definitely should consider that.
And I think the other side is that actually you taking your position is important, because whether you're right or wrong, you're going to add to the data of people that make those decisions, right? Like, I don't know the
Yeah.
numbers of how many shots to the head or at what velocity or at what duration or whatever it is that you take that will seriously damage your long-term health. And I don't think anyone really knows
There's
yet.
not an exact number. It'll depend on individuals, definitely.
Of course. And I mean, you know, it will also depend on who you're getting hit by, and there's so many other variables, of course.
If it's
But
Sean, you don't have to worry.
well, right, pillow hands. He's only getting to those shots that he can take you down with that head and arm throw, and that's it.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, whereas if you get hit by Louis, that's a very different prospect, right?
Yeah, Louis. Louis a very, very skilled. Like, so at Firehouse, we were both teaching boxing classes, and so I'm qualified. I know a good amount about boxing. I've got a box side qualification. I'm obviously a PT as well. But the level in fight sports, well, the levels that are in anything, but the level that are in fight sports is insane. And I don't think people realise this. Like, when people watch the UFC, because their defense is so good, you don't appreciate the offense sometimes, unless it's a mismatch or unless it's like a really bloody fight or whatever. The levels to this, like the difference between me to you to Louis to whoever else to the UFC, like the levels is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting, like watching Louis train and stuff like that, and watching him. So like I'd do some sparring with Sean, and he'd throw me all over, and then I'll watch him look at a clip of them sparring, and Louis absolutely throwing him around. So it's like the level to this is quite scary. It's quite scary to watch, actually. It's one of the many reasons why I would like to be better at it.
For sure. And I think that, you know, just to throw a name that you've already mentioned in the podcast, is if you put Louis and Mark Diakese in a ring, you'd see that, I mean, of course, Mark is more skilled, and of course, Mark is more experienced, right? That's a big thing. A huge thing is experience.
Experience is huge, yeah.
But then, you know, you put Louis against somebody his weight that's just rolled out of a pub, like, it's just not close, right? It's just not close. And that's why I think the other thing that upsets me a bit when you watch MMA events, regardless of the brand, is when people say that they're shit, like uneducated people, like he's shit. You're like,
that's
oh,
me.
Jesus
I'm an educated person, yeah.
But you're not uneducated, right? Because you've been in some form of combat training and you've taken a few licks, right? And you would know just as well as, right, you learn quickly. Like, you know, I remember being KO'd by my coach. He head kicked me and I hit the ground, and it was like, oh, okay, like, I'm not invincible. Like, I'm not invincible. Like, I'm really not. And
it's very easy to hit a bag a couple of times or to do a couple of rolling drills and think, I'm pretty good at this. And then as soon as you go against anybody that actually knows what you're doing, you realise very quickly you're not as good, which I think is a good thing. I think definitely more people should go into martial arts. I think if everybody in the world did martial arts, it'd be a much better place. And that's obviously easy to say, and it's not actually something that can be applied. But like the morals that you learn from it is huge. Even from the small little bit that I've done, it's just it's definitely something that you touched on before about how in jiu-jitsu you're having this verbal agreement. Stop trying to kill me, you've won, because the difference between life and death when someone's got a rear naked choke on is seconds, literally seconds. So like this is why I think refs in the UFC got a lot of bad rep, but like definitely. So I'm bad with names, but dreadlocks, UFC ref. Anyway, Herb Dean, and this is showing how casual of a fan I am, but it was Ben Askren
versus Robbie Lawler. Ben Askren had him in a bulldog choke, and Herb Dean lifted up his hand, and Robbie put his thumb up, but didn't seem to react in the way that Herb was willing for him to, wanted him to react, and he stopped the fight. Yeah.
In my opinion, anybody that wouldn't have stopped that fight shouldn't be a ref. That's in my opinion anyway, because I understand from Robbie is waiting it out or whatever he was doing, but in my opinion, like when the line is either you stop a fight early, someone loses a match, blah, 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 or somebody dies or has brain damage, I don't think Herb Dean's done anything wrong there, but that's a bit of a tangent.
So I disagree.
Okay.
The reason I disagree is because to put somebody unconscious with a choke takes anywhere from 3 to 15 seconds if you're really squeezing. If somebody is defending and maybe somebody has a really thick neck and whatever, like it might be harder to put somebody out. But we've all seen the videos of an MMA fighter, John Jones, Holly Holm, putting people to sleep in rear naked chokes. It happens, right? It can happen. So putting somebody out is one thing. To actually kill them, you need to be holding on for a long time. We're talking a minute and a half.
I think it's much easier than you. I think it's much easier
to cause brain damage. Sure, then because you're essentially cutting off the blood supply to the brain, right? There is a lot longer. However, I think for me personally, the stoppage for Robbie Lawler and Ben Askren was a little bit early, and the reason why it was a little bit early is because Herb asked Robbie to react, and Robbie put his thumb up. Herb then grabbed his hand, dropped his hand, and I agree, his hand looked like it was flailing and like there was no movement in his body, and therefore that he was out.
Yeah.
If it was me, I'd have tried to look get a little bit of a closer look, because the other thought of this is Michael Diaz. What's his name? It is Mike Chiesa. Mike Chiesa versus Kevin Lee. So Kevin Lee had a fully locked in rear naked choke, right? And Chiesa was fighting the rear naked choke, And what he tried to do is sit under the rear naked and have the rear naked pop up onto his jaw rather than his neck. And when he did that, his arms were above his head and he couldn't move them. And the ref called it off there and then. Now, again, what a lot of fighters will say is, let me go out, right? Let me go out. Now, in the Robbie Lawler one, it's difficult because you can't see specifically his face. You can't see if his eyes are open or closed, and you can't feel his breath or whatever. The other side to this is a lot of the time, fighters will know if their opponent is out, right?
Yes.
And you'll see it a lot. They'll look at the ref and they'll be like, he's out. Like, I know he's out. I can feel he's out. Or they'll tell the ref he's out.
Is that of a person.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, like, I'm not saying that they're going to hold that forever and just kill somebody.
Sure.
But like with John Jones, with again, I'm bad with names, with the choke against the fence and then he just completely collapses. Things like that. Like, although they might look at you with the knowledge, nice work. Yeah. Although they might know they're out, they'll hold it for a couple of seconds. You can't always just rely, and they might not know. You can't just rely on the other fighter being like, that's why the ref is there to see that. So I think when the outcome is, again, you might want to say you'd have to hold it for a while for somebody to die. I think it's much easier, and I'm not basing this off any evidence, but I know how fragile humans actually are, and I know that it is the difference between a few seconds where cutting blood off to the brain or cutting oxygen off to the brain is not something you want to mess about with. So I think when the outcomes are either potential death and brain damage or getting shouted at by some guy in the crowd that's drinking beer and has never fought in his life, being like, oh, you've made that call too early, I'm always going to take them not dying.
I will agree. I will obviously agree. I think where we are going, though, is for me, as I say, the Ben Askren, Robbie Lawler stoppage was a little bit early. I think you also have to take into consideration, and I know people may argue this, but I think you do. I think when it comes to submission type finishes, you have to take into consideration the level of opponent that's in there, right? If I'm like, for instance, if we take a kids jiu-jitsu tournament, when a submission is put on, you stop the fight.
Yeah.
Right. So if a kid has got anywhere near a fully locked in rear naked, the ref will call the fight's over. If they have an armbar and the armbar goes from anywhere other than like a defended to not being defended, they call the fight, because they can't afford for these kids to be hurt or damaged or whatever it is. Right. I think when you're reffing high level MMA, professional MMA, you must, and Jesus, I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit, but I was about to say I'm not sure I agree with myself, but let me put the point out and then we can argue about it. I think you have to have in some form an understanding that these people are trained and skilled competitors. And I think that you should give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, where I disagree with myself is you could have somebody like, I don't know, Damian Maia, right? Who's very, very clearly a specialist in one area, right? And you may then have somebody like Rampage Jackson, who's equally a specialist in another area. And Rampage is really, really common for being like, don't take me down. Like, we're just going to stand here and punch you in the face, right? Fine. Damian is the opposite, obviously.
Yeah.
Where we're going to have a problem is if Damian, let's just say, takes Rampage Jackson down and puts a rear naked choke.
What a fight this would be.
Jesus Christ, I don't want to see that now. But like, if he does manage to take him down and starts to put a choke on or whatever, like, we're well aware of Rampage Jackson has a deficiency in his ground game. So what happens? Do you let him just fight? Like, that's where I think there's a real problem. And that's where your position is probably better.
Okay. Do you agree with that in terms of striking as well? So, Jose Aldo,
Well, the problem with that is Jose Aldo is a phenomenal striker, just as Petr Yan is a phenomenal striker.
Okay.
The problem I have with that fight was that...
Do you want to explain what happened, by the way? Just for
Sure. So Jose Aldo dropped down to bantamweight for the first time in his professional career, like his proper professional career.
Hell of a fight, by the way. Hell of a fight.
Phenomenal fight. Petr Yan and Jose put on an absolute war for about 3 rounds. And then Jose started to fade. Due to one, Jose's always faded after 3 rounds. And two, Petr Yan had got the reads and he'd started to accumulate a lot more damage on Jose and tire him out. The bodywork was phenomenal. Anyway, Petr manages to take Jose to the mat. I believe it was an inside trip that he took him there with. And he started to land ground and pound. Now, Jose is notorious for being able to get up. I mean, it's so difficult to take him down, one, but when he does get taken down, he's notorious for getting back up. He didn't look like he was able to get back up. He then got into a position which is called turtle, which is essentially just on all fours, right, with your head tucked in between your arms. And Petr Yan landed, I think it was 1 minute and 6 seconds of unanswered strikes. To me, that's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. Now, what I don't like to see and what I don't agree with is referees, and not that I'm saying referees do this, I don't think they do, but some fans will be like, oh, Jose's a champion, this is a title fight, you've got to give him every chance to go out on a shield. Disagree. Bullshit. Jose, the referee was saying to Jose, move, give me something. Intelligently defend. The rule in the unified rules for MMA says if a fighter is unable to intelligently defend themselves, the fight must be stopped.
This is where there's a lot of debate, where what is intelligent defending?
Exactly. And this is where the grey area is. Now, the referee asked Jose to move and try and improve his position. And Jose, for everything, moved 1/2 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. He moved, right? Now, is he improving his position? No. Because Petr Yan is just following him and landing even more shots. When that fight ended, Jose was literally face down in a pool of his own blood. Nobody needs to see that.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to see that. Whether you're an amateur MMA fighter, a professional MMA fighter, or Jose Aldo, who's a legend, doesn't matter. We don't need to see that. To me, if Jose could have rolled to full guard if he wanted to. He could have tried to move to the fence, claw his way back up. He didn't. He stood there. He stayed there. He was taking shots. He doesn't want to be in the fight. You have to stop it. You have to.
I don't. The ref can't win in this situation. Like, they can't win. They call it too early. They get called a shit ref. They call it too late. They say you potentially. But again, you have to weigh up when it's a champ and a champ of Jose's caliber.
No.
Let me play that.
Yeah, sure.
I do agree. You have to say, well, he's moving and he's not just with his head up and his chin up. Like, he's defending technically. Yeah. He's technically defending and he's moving a little bit when the ref says to move, versus and he calls it, it'll get called shit, versus when he did call it, he'd get called shit. So I think it's a very, very hard job for the ref. But just quickly, I think this is exactly the same as the choke. However, the choke is just to a much quicker degree. I think it's just a matter of seconds rather than tens of seconds. I think that's the only difference.
I think there's two things, and I think one is a stigma, and the other one is not. So for the Jose stoppage, look, I agree that if you call it too early, you're going to get shit. If you call it too late, you're going to get shit. But there's 1 minute and 6 seconds.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree. Yeah.
Like for that example specifically, and there's been some where you've got a very short amount of time, but for that specific call, I'm sorry, there is, for me, there's 45 seconds in the middle there where you could be calling that fight at any point, right? And equally, it's not like Jose wasn't hurt and rocked earlier. Piotr Jan hurt Jose really bad with a body shot. He dropped him twice, and then in the 5th round. Now, of course, MMA judging and everything. MMA, I mean, to be honest, we could talk about that, but MMA judging, you score every round as it is. Every round is a new fight. That's fine. It's not like Pride where you score the accumulation of the whole fight. Reffing, you have to understand, does that fighter want to be in there? And if the answer is no, you have to stop the fight, right? Now, the thing for the stigma is, I think, where we get to with chokes, for instance, is people see chokes as way less dangerous than strikes, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is if you're choking someone, the person getting choked has probably got a grimace on his face or whatever it is, or her face, whatever. But if you're looking at Piotr Jan Jose Aldo, it's extremely visceral to the damage that he's taking, the punishment that he's taking. You can see it. Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald, you can see the punishment that their men are taking, right? And yet, when you're looking at somebody getting choked, like let's say Ben Askren, Robbie Lawler, you're kind of some people don't even know what's happening, right? Like you don't even see what's happening. Yeah, it just looks one guy squeezing another guy's head, right? Like a schoolboy bulldog choke. And for some part, that is happening, but it's just happening at a really high skill level. Exactly. So I think the stigma of somebody getting choked is a lot less because of the visceral visual damage. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably something that has to have a discussion as well, because I'm guilty of that. I look at that Ben Askren, Robbie Lawler choke and I'm like, he's probably all right. Just leave him, right?
Always err on the side of caution.
Exactly. And I probably agree with you, right? I probably now agree with you. And I do think though that MMA judging has got so much better than what it has. Sorry, I did want to have one more point. The other point about reffing and knowing when a fighter is in the fight and not in the fight. Did you watch Nathaniel Wood versus Josh Reed in Cage Warriors?
I did not.
Okay, so for anyone that wants to go and have a bit of a dichotomy, a bit of a comparison about MMA refereeing, is go and look at Jose Aldo versus Piotr Jan, right? Especially the 4th and the 5th round. And then go and watch Nathaniel Wood versus Josh Reed. So in that fight, what happens? I think it's only a 1-rounder. But Nathaniel is winning quite comfortably, right? And then Josh Reed manages to hit Nathaniel with a big shot. I think it's a big overhand left. And Nathaniel is up against the fence and he is taking a lot of damage. He, at one point he nearly sits himself down with a shot, but he manages to keep himself in there. Now he's parrying a lot of shots. He's defending a lot of shots. A lot of shots are hitting his arms and his gloves or whatever, but he is taking a lot of damage. And then Nathaniel, through the chaos, manages to catch Josh Reed with a left hand. And all of a sudden he rocks Josh Reed and he turns him around and he finishes Josh Reed, right? Oh. Now, a lot of people watching the fight during that onslaught from Josh Reed would have shouted for the fight to be stopped. But the referee, Mark Goddard, saw that Nathaniel was still there, still cerebral, still defending, still moving, right? Managed to turn that fight around and finish Josh Reed. Defended his title, went to the UFC. Uh-huh. Imagine if he had stopped the fight and Nathaniel had lost that fight. Josh Reed wins the belt. Does Josh Reed go to the UFC? Who knows? And the other thing that's important in this debate is the UFC pay structure, right? Because fighters will go out on their shield way more because half of their pay packet is withheld from them if they lose.
Is if they win.
Right.
Yeah, got you.
Huge
Interesting.
problem.
First of all, I just want to say, I don't even think I need to watch that fight anymore because you described that so beautifully.
Thank you.
The money thing is definitely a huge debate.
Yes.
Paige Van Zandt saying she gets paid more from the dancing that she did rather than her whole MMA career. Like, there's a huge problem. And again, I don't know enough about it. Is that Dana just being a bit of a ball bag, or is that there's not enough money in the sport to be able to push all the money through?
Absolutely not. This is 100% the UFC being a monopoly. And to be honest, like, Bellator, from what I understand, pay fighters a little bit more generously than the UFC do. But if a company is being sold for 4.2 billion or whatever it was, there is money in that company to pay fighters more than 10 and 10. So what I mean by 10 and 10 is when a fighter is signed to the UFC, and let's say they don't have a name, a name, they're just being signed because they've done well in the regional scene or whatever it is, they will go onto a contract, usually a 1 to 3 fight contract, where they'll be paid $10,000 to turn up, weigh in successfully, and they'll be paid $10,000 if they win. If they don't win, they're only paid what's called their show money, which is the money they're paid to turn up, right? That is fucking ludicrous. Imagine you go and you've put 10 years, 15 years, 12 years, whatever it is, into becoming the level of athlete, the skill level of athlete to compete in the UFC. You turn up, you get paid 10 grand to go through your weight cut, and then you lose a really difficult, close decision. You go home with 10K. Off that 10K, you need to take your taxes off.
Yeah.
You need to take your camp costs off, your coach's costs. And what are you left with?
No.
None a lot of the time. Like, a lot of fighters will say that when they first started fighting for the UFC, they were paying to fight for the UFC rather than being paid.
What's the average career length for a
Do you mean in the UFC or just totally?
In general, MMA fighters, but whatever
years.
information, 9 years. You have to essentially make all of the money to last you the rest of your life, in theory, in 9 years.
Right. And how long does it take to get to the UFC? 10 years.
Yeah. So you're fucked from the start, essentially.
This is my point, right? My point here is that a lot of the I mean, of course, you're not fighting as soon as you started training, but some guys do that, right? Some guys are fighting before they've even trained, really? Right? Like, you hear about Justin Gaethje or whatever. He just wrestled a bit and then was like, fuck it, I'll go into a fight, let's see what happens.
Fair play.
And, there's a massive debate to be had here about fighter pay and how that actually affects fights. And I think that a lot of it, these fighters are just tough bastards, right?
Yeah.
And they don't want to quit. They don't want to lose. And they don't have that mentality to lose. But I think that some fighters especially will be willing to take the punishment or gut out submissions or, do whatever it is because they need that money.
Got you. Yeah. So I think the moral of the story, I don't know what your viewer ratios are, but if there are any small children watching, don't be an MMA fighter. I think that's the moral of this story. Well, I mean,
I agree and I disagree, right? I'm not sure there's many small children watching the podcast, but if so, I'm really sorry for all the bad language. I'm really sorry.
Man, we should have thought about this.
Yeah, fucking hell. But what I think is that you have to follow what gives you meaning, right? And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Back, yeah.
Is that fighting for a lot of people gives them so much meaning. Because, you talk about Louis and Sean and these guys, but like the people that you have literally fought, whether it be at a gym or not, you're ultimately a lot closer to than just a random Donny on the street, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's difficult to tell people not to fight.
It is addictive. I think people either make or break. Like, if you go into a gym, like my first jiu-jitsu lesson, I'm just sort of having no idea what I'm doing. People choking me out left, right, and centre.
Sure.
You're either going to be like, fuck this. Why am I going to come here just to get absolutely ruined every day? Or you become addicted to it. Like, I feel like there's no in between because even though you're losing, you're like, this is loads of fun. Like, I'm having loads of fun. Every time I get punched in the face, I'm like, this is great. But I think you have to have a very specific mindset for it. But there's definitely ways around that. You don't have to do hard sparring. Like, there's definitely ways to enjoy it still.
I agree. I mean, I certainly can't agree with you anymore. Like, I think my time of getting punched in the face, honestly, is done. Like, I've been punched and kicked in the head so many times that now, like, honestly, I don't think I get any enjoyment out of it. I think maybe punching people in the face would be enjoyable, but me
Yeah.
getting punched in the face is less enjoyable.
Well, I haven't been punched in the face enough to really know yet, so
Yeah, you get back to
dip
me
my toe in the
in
water.
6 months. Get back to me in
Yeah.
6 months to see how you feel. But like, I do get it. Like, I do get it. Like, I've said all along, and very more so now. Like, I think at some point I would like to have a couple of MMA fights, simply because, you know, one day I'd like to be a coach, not an MMA coach, just a jiu-jitsu coach, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to have competed in different facets. Like, I've competed kickboxing, I've competed jiu-jitsu, but I think it's important to have competed in different facets, so that if somebody comes to you and says, what does it feel to do as a coach, you should be able to answer that question.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm completely set on competing in jiu-jitsu at some point. Like, it's the risks to it are a lot lower in theory. Like, unless it goes very bad, the risk of it, you can have a few whirls, like, and you're fine. So I definitely want to compete at some point. I'll probably end up doing a few, but I definitely want to take one off. And then at some point, I'd quite like to do a boxing match at some point. A boxing match, but I feel like I'm in a headspace where I'm confident that if I roll and just get choked out within seconds, I'm still going to be happy. I'm going to be like, well, I'm quite glad I've done that. I'll still be a bit bummed and like, oh, I'll probably want to do that again and try and redeem myself. Same with boxing. If I went out and all my family's there and I last a round, I get knocked out, I'm like, oh, I'm still glad I've done that. I think that's a good space to be in, because if I'm going in being like, I need to win this, like, or I know I'm going to win this, and then you don't, it's not a good place to be in. So I think I'm in a good headspace to be able to compete in that. But yeah, jiu-jitsu I definitely want to tick off. I actually need to train some of it, because like I said, with the tattoo and then with COVID, I've done very, very little jiu-jitsu, so I probably shouldn't compete just yet. But yeah, definitely something I'd want to tick off.
I think with jiu-jitsu, it's a lot, I would be a lot more confident to just jump in, right?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
as you say, the difference between doing an amateur boxing match without having any real knowledge is drastically different to jumping into a jiu-jitsu tournament like an Empire or whatever.
People are nice as well. Like, people aren't just going to be a dick. Like, I'm not saying boxing isn't people are dicks, because people are usually nice at boxing. If they know they're better than you, they're not just going to throw you about. But in jiu-jitsu especially, like, people know the levels to it, and it's so easy to scale. Like, it's quite hard to do in boxing to, like, not hit them as much and reduce your power. It's a little bit harder. But in jiu-jitsu, like, I've rolled with Sean. Again, the levels between me and Sean is huge.
Sure.
But we could have good competitive rolls because he's putting, like, it's weird, like, he can set his level to exactly where you need it, where
he's willing to play.
Yeah, essentially. Like, and it's definitely chess. It's definitely chess. And this is what I like it in a different way to how I like boxing. Like, it's not like I like martial art. I don't even know how to describe how it's different, but I like boxing and jiu-jitsu in very, very different ways.
So I think for me, having experienced both, and I've done jiu-jitsu now for a number of years, like, I'll try and explain it this way. For me, jiu-jitsu is a lot less stressful than striking sports. I think with jiu-jitsu, it's a lot more about play. It's a lot more about experimentation.
Yeah.
It's a lot more about introspective creativity. Whereas to me, kickboxing and boxing is a lot more primal. It's a lot more dominance based, and it's a lot more aggressive. Now, of course, both of those have vast positives. To be able to walk out of a couple of rounds with somebody knowing that you absolutely dominated them is a euphoric feeling.
Yeah.
Being able to know that you dominated that person is euphoric. It's phenomenal. It does great things for your ego. In the same vein, being the nail and getting hammered for 3 rounds is also good for your ego in a lot of ways.
That's weird to explain to people. Like, people that don't do it won't understand that, but it is.
Of course. And the same vein with jiu-jitsu, right? Like, if Sean wanted to, he could probably tap you with whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's humbling to understand.
Yes.
And that's humbling to understand. And me, like, I've been doing this for coming up for 4 years, and Sean could probably tap me with whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, right?
Yeah.
there's levels, and you spoke about that, and I think we've said that to death. But the point here is the big difference for me is that when I was fighting, I wanted to hurt the people that I was sparring, because if I didn't hurt them, they were going to hurt me. In jiu-jitsu, I never want to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to be dominant, of course, positionally dominant and submissionally dominant, but I'm never trying to hurt anyone. Whereas, as I say, when I was fighting, like if I was throwing kicks to the head, they were meant to hurt you. They're not meant to score points. Like, I'm trying to hurt you.
So, I mean, it's hard to differentiate the two.
Yeah.
Very hard.
And because the other problem is throwing strikes in a fashion that you're trying not to hurt somebody is probably going to mean they're not going to land, right? Now, of course, we can do touch sparring, and that's fine, right? But that's not sparring. Touch sparring to me is when you're literally playing, and it's like the ties practice where they're literally just touching each other.
I have done a little bit of that, and it is good fun.
Of course. And you're well aware, and it's as you say with the stoicism thing, you're not doing anything, but you're also not beating the fucking head off each other. You're in the middle, you're touching each other to be like, look, this is here, I could land this. But again, the timing is different from regular sparring to touch sparring. And it's a skill upon itself.
Has to be specific.
It has to be, yeah, of course. Because, what will also happen is in touch sparring is somebody will land at 5% more than they're supposed to. And then the other person will land at 5%, and it just keeps building, and eventually you're hard sparring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think in that fashion, it's very difficult. But yeah, I mean, jumping into those things, I think are good goals to have. As I say, I would like to fight again at some point. One, because I can't lie, I miss fighting. Like, I do miss fighting. Whilst I only kickboxed for a short amount of time competitively, I miss it, right? I do miss it. You miss winning. You miss not even winning, but like winning a round. Knowing that you go back to your corner in a 3-round fight, being like, I won that round. That was good.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that feeling, but I'm sure it's great.
It is great, but then in the same vein, it's utterly depressive to walk back to your round knowing that you've lost that round badly. Like the last fight I ever had, the guy broke my jaw in the first round, right? And I walked back
a load of fun, that.
Mate, it wasn't. I walked back to my corner, and my coach was like, "You lost that round," and I couldn't speak to him obviously because my jaw was fucking broken. But I was like, "Yeah, like I know I lost that round." And then, I can't remember whether. I don't think I got stopped. I think I managed to get through the next two rounds. Cheers. But yeah, I've only ever been stopped in the gym, I think. I've only ever been stopped in the gym. But I didn't have that many fights. I think I had like 10 fights. But again, I was a kid, right? Like I was a kid. I was like 16. So, they're not real fights. Not really. Not in the way that they would be now at 27, with like grown man strength and stuff. But yeah, I think to your point previously is like the good headspace that you're in, right? I wanted to touch on that a little bit, and that's the first jiu-jitsu competition I ever did. I had a drastic weight cut. And I put absolutely everything into it, and it meant everything, and I lost it, and I was like, oh, and that affected me really badly for a long time, right? And I think you, speaking of where you are, you speak from a real place of maturity, and that's that, you're aware that it doesn't matter, really. It doesn't matter. If you go in and you win, great. If you go in and you lose, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Your mom or your dad and your brothers and sisters and friends are still going to love you the same.
Might disown me. Who knows?
I mean,
no son of mine is going to lose a fight.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
There's probably people like that, though, right?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it's that, like, I'd obviously prefer to win. That would be ideal. Yeah. But, yeah, like I said, I just want to do shit. I'm still young. I don't want to, I want to have stories of just like, oh yeah, this one time I did this and this one time I did this. I want to travel somewhere, I want to do some things. Like when I first met Louis, Louis is the highlight of this show.
Yes.
Like I'd known him for a little bit, and he was saying how he used to be in the circus. I'm like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
But just like little things like that, of just like odd stories of things people have done in the past, and I'm like, yeah, I'd absolutely hate to get to 60 and have grandkids and just not have any stories to tell. Like that,
For sure.
that scares me.
And Louis is a fucking enigma, right? He is an absolute enigma. You look at the size of that guy and the leanness of that guy, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I bet he
Dick
stiffens a
skin lean
board.
is what I like to call it.
You what? Sorry.
Dick skin lean. That's what it's called.
Right. Excellent.
You're welcome.
I mean, that's probably a fucking pretty good. That's a pretty good description.
Yeah. Let's hope the little kids aren't listening. But anyway.
Yeah, let's hope. But then, you know, he then shows you his acrobatic ability, and you're like, oh no, this guy's literally got everything. Like, this is ridiculous. And yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. But that kid's worked so hard. That man has worked so hard to get to where he is, and continues to work so hard to where he gets to. And you know, yeah, it's just the stories thing. Like, I wanted to touch on. You talked about your tattoos before. Like, tattoos are a story in a way, right?
Mine are, but yeah.
I mean,
So
tell me about your tattoos. Why do you get tattoos? What are they for?
So when I was, let me backtrack again. But when I was about 17, I had my best friend at the time. We're not friends anymore, but that's an interesting story as well about I might skip on to that. I nearly got stabbed once. Funny story. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, remind me.
Yeah, sure.
And he'd found like I've always wanted tattoos, like always from being 13, 14. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be covered. And my friend had found a tattoo artist that didn't care how old you was. Right. So, and then he went and got something, and I'm not going to say his are shit now, but they're not as good as they could have been. But anyway, and then after he got his, I'm just, every day I'm like Googling, I'm like just thinking about anything that I could get. I'm just like trying to find something. And then I eventually decided, bro, this on my forearm. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to get it. And then for some reason, I talked myself out of it. Just 2 roses on my arm. Just that's it. And my girlfriend at the time actually was quite good at art. And she drew it on. And so I had it on my arm. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait to do this. And then for some reason, I talked myself out of it. And I am so, so glad I talked myself out of it. Because Jesus Christ, they'd have been absolute shite. And then as soon as I turned 18, so I still do have some regrets about this arm, but I wanted traditional tattoos. So I got like a bear, this one first, and then got like all back of my arm done. And then the gaps were just weird because I didn't think about my whole arm. I just sort of was like, that looks cool, I'll get that. And I still thought about the individual thing that I was getting, but just as a whole, I didn't think about it. And so I got this arm done, and I'm like, I still like them, but I'm like, it could have been so much better. Then I went to a much better tattoo artist a little bit later called Joe Galloway, if anyone wants to follow him, and Japanese style. And I got all of my leg done, my lower leg done, and beautiful. Honestly, it's so much better. I'm like, I regret so much not just waiting. If I could choose now, I'd have just got Japanese everywhere. And then I was sort of debating between, or maybe if I do like on my right side, I'll do traditional, and then my left side, Japanese. I was talking to him about it, and he was like, there's no point getting tattoos just for the sake of getting tattoos for it to be even. So he sort of like filled the gaps here. I've got some clouds. He's done an awesome job of it. But none of them mean anything. Like, I just think, oh, it looks quite cool. So I would like to have some that means something at some point, but currently nothing means anything. I do. There's no point in me trying to show you, but I do have a mustache on my finger that I got done in a kitchen by my girlfriend at the time when I was 16, 17. I love this tattoo. Everyone hates it. Every time I show someone, like, why would you do that? And I'm like, this is great. Great conversation starter.
You know, you said there's no meaning to it, but there is meaning to it. Of course, you've just said the meaning to it, right? And in the same vein, you know, the point about tattoos for a lot of people is that they're a story, and they're a story of where life was and how life was. And in the same vein,
it's a good way to think about it.
The first one was this bear here, and I got this by this guy, and you know, that taught me that actually, if I thought about composition of my artwork as my body, composition of my ideas, maybe it could have turned out a little bit better. But look at what I did next, right? There's a story of progression there, and
it's a good way to think about it.
And you know, for me personally, everything I have has some form of meaning to it, some form of story behind it. That's just because that's how I do things, and that's how I did things. But
which one's your favorite?
That's difficult.
Well, you're on the spot now. You have to pick.
That's difficult. What's my favorite? Probably my chest tattoo. It's not finished yet, but probably my chest tattoo. So for those on the video, let's see, like,
man, that's mega.
Yeah, so it's basically, let's see if I can get the rest of it. Something. Yeah, it's not, as I say, it's not finished yet. It needs to come, like, it needs to finish the lines of my shoulders and then actually complete my whole chest. But the story behind that, I think I've told this on the podcast, but if not, like, I went to Russia, I went to Moscow for my tattoo, and we started really late because when I got there, the gentleman that was tattooing me, Ben Kleveshki, he has a translator in the shop. So we were translating between what my idea was and what his thoughts were, and we were going back and forth, and then he needed some time to draw up the artwork, so he drew up the artwork, and that took about 3 or 4 hours. And then when we came back, I made a couple of alterations and blah 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 blah. So we didn't get actually tattooing until, like, I don't know, like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, and we finished at 1 a.m., half 1 a.m. And like, that was the time that I had, and I need to get it finished. But this in itself is a cover up, right? So underneath, there's some script that I had at 18 that my sister decided to put me in a chair and was like, "This is your birthday present. Get
fantastic."
Something. Right? So, we all have those regrets, but I think this one is probably my favorite one because this was the one that I really thought about for the longest time. Now I have some rules that I undertake for tattoos. Like, if I have an idea, I need to stick with that idea for at least 1 year to 2 years. If I still have that idea and I still like that idea in 2 years, then I'll then look to get it. Other than that, I'll just wait, essentially. But I think
that's
the reason,
a good way. I have a similar thing, just a much shorter time period. But yeah, it's a good way of thinking.
Yeah, and I think it's important, right? Because both of us, the reason why we probably have those rules is because both of us have got stuff or had stuff before that we don't like, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to, in a way, it's important to make that mistake, right? Hopefully, if my kids or my missus has just started getting tattoos, if she gets something that she doesn't like, I'll be very upset for her. But in the same vein, like, I think it's important for you to go through that process to understand who you are in a way.
There's another element of stoicism where there's no good or bad. Again, this is taken to the extreme that I think most people wouldn't be able to do, but there's no good or bad. There's only the emotions that we attach to those outcomes.
Yes.
Which is, again, very easy to say in theory, and I think it's a good way of thinking about things. But it can be quite difficult to apply, but it's a good way to approach things anyway.
I agree. I mean, I think this is the biggest reflection for that to me is words, right? Like if I say the word selfish, immediately the connotation that you've had is bad.
Yes.
But not necessarily. Like, for instance, it was selfish of you to turn down that apprenticeship in alarm engineering to go and study something else. It was selfish of you. You did something for yourself.
Yeah.
But if you tell the story, no one's going to demonize you and say that was a selfish action. You're a shitbag. You know what I mean?
It's worked out, but yeah.
But because it's worked out, right? So the emotion that we attribute to the word or to the scenario is then based on the connotation that we have. So I agree. I mean, if you want to go super extreme, something like rape or murder, right? Like, we say those things and we ultimately and immediately say that those things are bad, right? Now, the stoicism logic still stands up to that. The act of rape, and this is super volatile for me to say. Like, let me preface this. We are all well aware that rape is extremely, like, one of the worst things that you could do as a human, right? One of the worst things you can do to a human, especially as a male to a female. But, like, the act of it itself is merely an act, right? The connotation is bad, and rightfully so. And I don't think anyone can disagree with that and shouldn't disagree with that. But the emotion is the paint that we're putting on the canvas to reflect what the canvas is, right? Yeah. So if rape is the canvas, the paint is going to be a big fucking red cross, right? Because we know inherently that it's bad, but the act itself is merely an act. The same way for murder. Like, you could argue easier. The reason why I chose rape is because it's so difficult to actually try and fit it into that sentence. But something like murder is really simple. Like, let's say, for instance, somebody killed your mom. You're probably going to want to go and kill that person, and you can easily justify it, right? So, so murder is something that's a little bit easier to fit into that bracket. But yeah, again, just to preface, like, in no way am I trying to justify rape in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, it's merely I'm using the most volatile
extreme example.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you with tattoos and stuff. Like, do you only get work by Joe now, or is getting tattoos by certain people important?
I think I'll probably get like some little pieces here and there, but Joe does the style that I like, and he does it well. So, and I get along with him as well. He's a nice dude, so like we can chat and that. I don't feel like I'm just sat in silence the whole time. So I can't see myself going to anyone else anyway.
So yeah, I think that's interesting. Like, there are some people, and I've traveled around a little bit and got tattoos in different places, and like, for some people, it's actually nothing to do with what they get on their skin, but it's who puts it in their skin, right? So, for instance, they'll like a tattoo artist that much, they'll just go to them with a blank piece of skin and be like, do something. And
yeah, so to a certain extent, I think this is what they're good at. This is their expertise. So I think you should definitely have, like, if you go to a tattoo artist and be like, and even have drawn something out and be like, I need this, I want this, probably not a good idea. But again, to a certain extent, it is going to be on you forever. So I think you need to have a bit of an idea about what you want in. But again, middle line, all about balance.
Mate, I mean, I know I fucking hate it when that comes up, because it does always come up, right? But the other thing is because, like, I only picked that name because of Carl Jung, essentially, and like Jordan Peterson, and my idea is that actually everything is in the middle. Like, I think that everything is more or less, other than some very, very, very specific topics, I think more or less everything is in the answer to everything is in the middle. And I agree with your sentiment. I can see the justification for just going to an artist and being like, here's some skin, tattoo it. In the same vein, it's not too dissimilar with you saying, well, Joe does the style that I want, I'm only ever going to go to him, right? It's not too dissimilar. But to me, I agree. Like, you don't want to go into a tattoo studio saying, this is the exact drawing I want you to put on my skin, because then what's the point in going to that tattoo artist, right? You might as well just get a tattoo gun and trace it yourself. In the same vein, you know, you don't want to be, in my opinion, I'm not sure that I would feel super comfortable just going in and being like, here's some skin, do whatever you want.
That's some scary shit.
Exactly. There needs to be some flexibility, and there needs to be a little bit of to and fro. And the reason why you're going to this tattoo artist is because you want them to invest in your idea. You want them to appreciate that they're going to put something on your meat vehicle that's going to live with you for the rest of your life. And, you know, you want them to do that with love and care and attention, right? So
yeah, definitely agree. Can't disagree with that.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to draw it back now, because this is the only thing circling in my head is you nearly got stabbed once.
Yeah. So I don't think it was ever actually going to stab me, but the threat was there. Right. So this was with this friend.
The friend that's no longer a friend.
Yeah. Right. So by this point, I'd done a little bit of boxing. There'd been a couple of fights in school, but I don't know how to fight. Like, I think that's fair to say. Hare Hills Lane, if anyone knows that, it's a very, very notorious area. But me and my friend was walking up there, going to a shop somewhere, I think. And two people crossed the road over, and I recognised one of them. I find this a funny story, and I tell people because I've told myself it so much that people are like, why are you laughing? That's not funny. But anyway, these two people crossed the road, and I recognised one of them from school. Like, it was about a year below, but I didn't know him, I just knew of him. And he starts squaring up to my friend. My friend's quite tall, I'm quite short, so it was quite a double act. But anyway, so he's squaring up to my friend. He's just talking shit about a girl or something. I don't know why he was starting the fight. And he like tries to make my friend flinch, and my friend doesn't move an inch, right? And that is hilarious. That is so funny. So I start laughing, and he doesn't like that. He's not too happy about that. So he sucker punches me. I don't want to make my head too big, but I then won that fight. He was on the floor. My friend pulls me off. I'm like, what are you doing? This other guy then lifts up his shirt and has a screwdriver in his waistband.
Oh no.
So I'm like, well, this is going well. Yeah. So I'm just, me and my friend are like, right, fine, whatever, we'll leave it. Let's go. And then he starts coming at us with it. So we both start running away. Because I'm an athlete, I fall over, cut my hands up, and then he's just like stood over me with his screwdriver shouting whatever. And I'm like, oh, dude, whatever, leave it. And then he runs away, we go our own way, and I'm like, that was interesting. Yeah, that's my funny story of Neil getting stabbed.
Mate, I mean...
Could have been worse.
Well, it could have been worse, but, I mean, talk about a tumultuous story, right? Some guy comes for your friend, you end up fighting him, and then his mate decides to stab both of you. Like, yeah, Jesus, I don't think that's probably an uncommon story either, right? You get into a couple of scraps, and because somebody's losing, they pull out a weapon.
This is what's scary. This is what's really scary. Like, if the world, like, my dad's told me stories about when he was younger, and you'd have a fight with someone, and if you lost, you bought the other one a pint. I don't know if it was that fairy tale, but like, if you had a disagreement with someone and you had a fight and I lost, I'd be like, right, fair enough. But I know that other people don't think like that, and you need to avoid it at all costs, because it only takes, first of all, it only takes one punch to kill someone anyway. Second of all, if you win, their friends might help. If you win, they might pull a weapon. If you lose, you might be on the floor and get stamped. Like, there's no win. There's no win in this scenario. And like, it is terrifying. And again, it comes back to morals, like the people, how they're brought up. I don't know what's going wrong, but the morals have changed in many aspects over the years, like not just in this, but in general.
I think a lot of it is access. The access to these things is different now. And
I'm going to disagree. I don't think the access is the problem, because if you wanted a knife, you could always get a knife at any point in time. I don't think that's the problem. The choice is to carry a knife and to potentially use a knife. I think that's the problem. So it's the person behind it, not whether you can get a knife or not.
So I think maybe access is probably the wrong word. What I was trying to explain or trying to express is like, if you would watch a film back in the day, for instance, then it was very specific, because there was only a certain amount of films that you would watch, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now, the films that you can see, sometimes they popularize weaponized violence, right? Whether it be a stabbing or, a bat or cricket bat or whatever it is, there is some form of weapon that's available. Now, guns are difficult to get hold of, right? They're difficult to get hold of, even as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old. In the UK, it's very difficult to just go into anywhere and just buy a gun, right? It's difficult. In the US, obviously, it's a little bit different, but I think the other side, so it's like access to material that promotes the weaponized violence, right? The other side of that, however, is if you know that you're going to lose, nobody wants to lose, right? You said before, you don't want to go into a jiu-jitsu competition or a white-collar match, a boxing bout, and you're not going to go in there and actively want to lose, right? So nobody that gets into a confrontation on the street wants to lose either. So how do you get the edge on your opponent? Well, the edge on your opponent is either through skill acquisition, which, as we've already spoke about, is difficult to get hold of.
Yeah.
Or the skill acquisition of going to B&Q and getting a screwdriver, because you know full well that, you were amped up and you were in a primal state for you to fight the guy in the first place. As soon as his mate pulls out a screwdriver, that primal instinct goes, the adrenaline dump comes, and you're like, oh no, I'm in some serious trouble now, right?
Yeah, it was a very scary time.
Exactly. And that reaction is power, right? So the route to winning fights, I guess, or confrontations is much simpler if you just pull out something that the other person doesn't have, right? Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that, I agree, is a problem. Like, we've probably all got stories of scraps we've had as kids and whatever. And I remember quite vividly when weapons started to come into it. And it was at that point that I agree with you that I was like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with this anymore.
No, just not worth it at all.
I don't know why having just a fist on fist or, a body on bone confrontation is way less scary than a knife. And I guess that's because go on.
I think, I don't want to say primal, but I feel like, because we're not really designed to hit people with our hands, But that is sort of, we design, like males are designed to fight over females and location, all that sort of, like that's what we're designed to do. So aggression is always going to be there with testosterone and whatever. There's always going to be that sign of aggression. So you can't just be like, right, let's have a conversation and figure this out. There's always going to be confrontation and aggression. And I feel like, oh, let's put some gloves on and go to a boxing ring, do that. Because although that is preferable, you can't just go do that. So fist fight is always the first thing to go to. People don't know how to fight. People and again, you only realise this after fighting people and after doing boxing and jiu-jitsu. You're really bad at it. Like, it's hard. Mm-hmm. So again, like you said, the easier option is to go like that. But this, I think, with morals and all that sort of stuff, the same as everything, it all gets passed down from parents. And I think, again, this is another conversation about the obesity problem at the moment and how the government are dealing with that. But again, that's another conversation. If as soon as something goes wrong in society, the morals are passed down to those kids, and then those kids have kids, and then the same morals get passed down, it just changes society, is by educating parents and future parents, because it's almost too late by the time somebody has already been educated in a certain way. The same with fat loss and things like that. If from being a child you've had takeaways and all that sort of stuff, and you've eaten when you've wanted, and you've eaten as much as you wanted, and that's only because your parents grew up like that, potentially their pet, like, again, it just passes down. So I don't know if you've seen, again, this is, we're going on tangents now, but the government, they're suggesting, so for the obesity thing, so while simultaneously saying we need to lose weight, while Boris is overweight, my ad, simultaneously doing eat out to help out, and again, that's a good thing, because we need to save businesses, all that sort of stuff. But the contradiction is, go out and eat as much food as you can for cheaper, but lose weight. Like, I can't believe, how are you overweight? This is stupid. How could you possibly do that? So the only solution is education. It's not the one putting forward weight loss shakes and things like that. And again, the problem with this, a lot of the coaching that I do, especially with nutrition, is habit-based coaching. And I ramble on about this all the time on Instagram. But if you don't change the habits, so that the example that I give is, if you lock someone in a cave or in a cell or whatever, and you give them exact foods that they need, however many calories, perfect macronutrients, everything, and they lose loads of weight and they're really healthy, they're going to come out and they're just going to fall back to whatever habits they had before. Your habits make you. You make your habits, and then your habits make you. That, like, again, without sounding cliche, that is how it works. This has been a real tangent.
Go.
So by the government being like, oh, have these shakes, temporarily people might, it's always going to be a chore. Again, you can't make someone lose weight that doesn't want to lose weight. It's always going to be a chore to be like, oh, I have to have these shakes and not have this. You always prevent yourself, rather than creating a balance and changing your habits and still having foods you enjoy, but limiting, not being gluttonous, until you change the habits. Again, it's education down. You can't change people that are 20, 30, 40, 50 now, that have been doing it all of their life, to be like, we need to change all this right now. You need to look at schools, because schools are an absolute mess in many ways, and look at parents. So as they have groups and things for new parents, they have midwives and things like that. Part of that should be educating somebody on how to raise a child. Well, just raise a child, full stop. But raise a child to have proper exercise habits and eating habits, because as soon as they've lived for so many years, it's too late. Same with knives and all that sort of shit morals.
I mean, I think you're definitely onto a point about the hypocrisy between eat out, help out, and the lose weight thing. I mean, obviously there's a level of common sense here that the government is merely there, in my opinion, to offer you access to things and allow you access to things. Your adoption of those things are up to you. Like, you can go out to a restaurant from Monday to Wednesday, or could. I don't know if that help out, eat out thing is going to continue, but let's say it does. You can go out to a restaurant and you can order one course and you can eat it and it'll be fine. You'll have a nice time with whoever you're there with, or whether you're on your own, doesn't really matter. or you can choose to go out and order 4 courses, right? The option is there for you. The autonomy there is for you. Now, whether the marketing is employing the same tactics, whether the marketing is wanting you to go out and order 4 courses rather than 1 course and whatever, you know, it's the autonomy is still with you. The choice is still with you. Now, I agree
to a certain extent.
Go on.
I agree to a certain extent. The autonomy is with you, but again, your autonomy is only based off of what you already know, and what you already know is based off what you've been taught. So that's school and that's society.
Well, it is, but we also have choices, and we are not just the sum of society and school, right? We are the sum of society, school, and ourselves. You will see plentiful, bountiful times. People will come from a really negative background and turn out to be really, really good. Right?
Yeah.
In the same vein, you'll see people that come from a bountiful background and turn out to be fucking trash. Right? So what's important is that the choice of education. Education is always there, right? Like from yourself or from the PT that you referenced before that I've definitely forgotten his name. But the choice of education is always there, but it's whether we allow ourselves to be educated, you know, the same in school, right? Like the people that were in your class were of rough intelligence level similar to you, but the grades may have varied massively because half of the class couldn't be bothered to listen and half the class could be bothered to listen, for instance.
Yeah.
The choice of education is always there. Now, I agree, you know, we can base this down to macro choices and macro influences to various different facets. And we can then get into an argument about whether we even have choice and we've got free will and we can go all Sam Harris on this. But I think at some level you have to give autonomy to people and you have to allow them to fail or not on their own. Now, and that's kind of where my point is. Now, of course, your argument should be now, well, the government should be promoting that, and I would agree with that. Do they do that? Probably not. But then that's you know, we can then argue about what government is and why it's there and why we're choosing the government we are choosing, right? And then we go into a whole series of tangents and we're here for 5 hours, right? But yeah, predominantly I agree with you. I agree with you that there is a hypocrisy. And I also think there is an obesity problem. And as somebody that's kind of struggled with that myself, like I used to be really big as a kid and I'm definitely overweight for what I should be now. But, you know, I'm in a position where I'm aware of that and I'm trying to change the habits as you've spoken. Right? And I think that you're definitely right, that changing habits is should be the root and should be the core of all things. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we might as well go down this tangent now with your obesity problem. I was chubby as a kid. A lot of people was. There's clearly a problem in it now. Like, I can't remember the exact numbers, but the majority of the things that are because of obesity, things like cancer and joint problems and things like that. So it's a huge problem. Like if you fix the obesity problem, you'd save a lot of money from the NHS and that sort of thing. But again, habits-wise with losing weight, the government, I don't know how it gets passed down because there's definitely educated people in the government, like in terms of nutrition and things like that. But then the stuff they say is just absolute horseshit. Like, I don't know where they get it from. Like, people see personal trainers, not everyone obviously, but people see personal trainers like they're in shape, they train all the time, they eat perfect. Like I said before, some of the eating habits in the fitness industry is awful, first of all. And second of all, you are your environment. Like, if you're... So when I used to work at Firehouse, and I'm currently working at Coach Gyms at the moment, you're surrounded by other fitness people who train every day, or they might be preparing for a competition. So it's quite easy for you to follow suit. So as a personal trainer, it's reasonably easy for me to be in shape. Like, what else am I meant to do? Like, everyone around me is. Whereas if you're in a family and your parents and your brothers and sisters and your friends all eat when they want and eat what they want all the time, why would you, like, how hard that is to then come out of that like, right now I'm changing everything, I'm changing all my habits, and I'm never eating anything bad. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. And the example that I'd always say to my clients is, as a personal trainer, even myself, if I'm at home on a night and I'm hungry and there's chocolate in the fridge, I'm eating the chocolate. Again, that's a interesting topic, but I don't think willpower is as much of a contributor as people actually think it is. If there's chocolate there and I'm hungry, I'm eating the chocolate. Unless there's something else that's driving me, like I've got a competition or whatever else. But just as the average person, what's gonna drive them to be like, I'm not going to do it, where there's personal trainers that are doing it? So again, unless you change your surroundings and you change your education, it's a losing battle. You're just never going to win it. So it's tough, man. It's so tough. And this is why, fortunately, the government at the moment are not putting forward good information, which is hard to see, to be honest. I've ranted a lot there.
No, not at all. I think there's only really a couple of points that I think jump out at me. And the first one is the way you talk about your environment and the way that you talk about how things change and all this sort of stuff. The reason why, the statement you made is like, the average person, why wouldn't they eat that chocolate? Or why wouldn't they eat that thing?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is purpose and meaning, right? The answer is goals. You mentioned, if I don't have a competition. Okay, cool. So you're saying if you have a goal, it's easier to stick to something than if you don't.
Yeah, you've decoded my rambling there. Yeah,
right.
Essentially.
So then what we're saying is goals are important, right? And goals are important, and we specified that earlier. So I think, one of the biggest things that you're saying there is people need goals in order to attain something that they want, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. The other thing on the misinformation and all that sort of stuff, I think that there's a misconception that governments are the single sources of truth, right? Because if the governments were single sources of truth, then all the best personal trainers and all the best nutritionists would work for the government, and they don't.
They're a large source of truth, though, especially currently as well, after COVID and everything like that, where we've had to tune in, we've had to listen to everything.
I think they're a source of information.
They're saying.
So I think they're a source of information, not necessarily a source of truth. I think that what they are and what people
portrayed source of truth.
Right. So that's different, right? They're a marketed source of truth. I think that in the government you have, like with everything, they're just a bunch of people, right?
But people with a very, very important responsibility. Sure. Like, you can't. I assume the tangent was going to go down, but you can correct me. Is they're just people? They can make mistakes, all this sort of stuff. But when they're in the position where they influence so many people, it's mistakes that you can't be making. So I'm not blaming Boris Johnson for the shakes that they're putting forward, because he's obviously just being advised that it's not him just making shit up. Mistakes like that shouldn't be happen. When there is the education there that's like, just putting someone in a shake doesn't work, there's no excuse for that to have been put out for what people should be doing. No excuse.
So whilst I don't think it's an excuse, I think I can empathize with 2 points. The first point is that the layers of government make it very, very, very easy for you to do something, and somebody else will make a decision about whether that goes ahead or not. And they will only make the decision on what you inform them of, right? So in the same vein that Boris will come and he'll make this speech, he hasn't written that speech. He's reading a speech that's been written for him. And equally, he will only say things that he's been informed of. He'll read papers. Like, I used to work in a government practice in the IT team, but I used to work in a government practice.
Oh, nice.
And like, I was well aware of how that government practice worked. And that worked where low-level people did some investigation. They passed their thoughts on to somebody else. They sat around a table and had a discussion. They had an argument about it. Somebody wrote a paper. That paper influenced what this person was saying. That was then reviewed by 3 other people at 3 other different levels. It then went through that person, and then it got to another person, and that person was eventually the minister that was going to say some stuff. Right? So the chain.
This is arguing my point, however, because I agree. With all, sorry, I'm just arguing myself here.
We're getting through all these places, right? But where the fault is these people aren't experts at these things. These people are ministers. They're politicians a lot of the time, right?
No bet.
So where we can empathize is that these people are filling a role, and most of the time they're filling a role to the best of their ability, right?
Yeah.
The problem we have is what I'm going to go back to with your point is about education, right? We as a populace are essentially employing a set of people that aren't fit to do their jobs, but that's not really their fault, right? It's their fault in that, as we've already stated, they could choose to be educated. They could choose to undertake that thing. But that's very difficult for somebody that's been given a decent wage and a decent level of power and influence, which are all additives to human positivity, right? When you've given them that, it's very difficult for them to take that away from themselves, to voluntarily, heroically almost give that up. Right? And the other thing is about, like, I think when you're in a position like that, you have there becomes a normalcy to power and influence. You don't really realize that you have it. You don't really realize, or you forget to recognize the ability that you have over somebody, right? And I'll give 2 points for this. The first one is I posted a roundup on Instagram the other day of the episodes in August.
Yeah.
And I got a really beautiful message from a person that was kind of basically thanked me for doing these things and said that they enjoy them when they're gaming or when they're just chilling at home and whatever. And it struck me that actually other people do listen to this thing. And I'm just doing it because I enjoy to do it, and I enjoy having conversations like we've had today, and I enjoy having conversations with other people, right? And I put that out there, and sometimes I forget that people actually listen to it, and they may actually take something positive from it. And in the same vein, like your PT clients, like you may just speak to a PT client and you may speak to 10 different PT clients. Now, what you get out of that is a wage, right? Obviously, and you get to further your skills and you get to do all this other stuff. And that's cool. But the benefit that these 10 people have on you is less, I would argue, than the benefit that you have on one of those 10 people, right? Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't, let's say they come up to you and they say to you, like, you've really changed my life. Like, and let me tell you exactly why. Then it hits home just the amount of influence that you have, right?
Yeah.
Whereas these people that are part of this government system are going to work every day, 9 to 5, and they're just trying to do their job. I don't think that they may know quite the influence they have.
That shouldn't be allowed.
I agree.
I don't. There's people that are employing them. So there's people above. Again, it's a big labyrinth of a lot of shite going on. So I don't know what the solution is. There's much smarter people than me that need to figure this out. But my point is that misinformation like this, and just like with all the COVID stuff, there was the open shops up, and then a few weeks later was like, you need to wear masks in shops. It's like, right, well, wear masks in shops. Why wasn't it when you opened the shops? Things like that. I understand it's a government that have never had to deal with something like this before, and they are just people. But again, when there's lives on the line, mistakes shouldn't be made like that. The same as obesity. People are literally dying from this. Mistakes like pushing absolute shite, like shakes onto people that we know isn't going to work because the government aren't the first people to do this. That sort of misinformation shouldn't happen. I don't understand. I don't know what the solution is, but I know that I'm disappointed, like a father.
Jesus Christ. I think, and we'll probably round it out here, is I think that the solution to this is very, very complex and very, very difficult because, you know, what we'd have to do is government salaries aren't amazing, first off. You can make way more money if you're an independent in what's called the private sector. So you have the public sector, which is like government, and the private sector, which is like corporate business. Mm-hmm. You're going to make way more money in private sector because there's way more money to be made in private sector. So the stigma or the incentive is, if you want to further yourself and be paid what you determine to be a fair wage for the knowledge and the skills that you've acquired, then you're going to go into something like private sector, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that needs to change, right? Is if we're going to live in the economic state that we are currently in, then we need to help and use that to to allow us to be in a position where government is run by experts, right? But then you also need these government officials that are aware of how government works and how legislation works and how it's passed and how it's discussed and how it's debated and all of this stuff. There are people that's a skill in itself, right? And we need to have that. Otherwise, the government just wouldn't work in any fashion. Misinformation or good information just wouldn't be fucking passed, right? It just wouldn't happen. So that's something that needs to happen too. I think then there needs to be an understanding, just a realignment maybe, that this isn't a power game necessarily, but this is a game where, as you say, the influence is vast, the influence is massive, not just in coronavirus time, not just in obesity time, but anything, right? Taxation laws, where tax money is spent, all of this sort of stuff, criminal justice, all of these things that are in some way influenced by the government. There needs to be an understanding that this stuff means things to people. And I think maybe just a recentering of, and I'm going to go back to it all the way, purpose and meaning, and having those things as more of a center of why we're making societal decisions is probably more important than just going for PM, because then on your CV it says that you were PM.
It's definitely a complicated subject. Like I said, I'm definitely not smart enough to fix, but I hope somebody is. Maybe you're the man for the job. Maybe you can figure it all out.
Oh my God, I am about as far away from the job as possible. I'd like to actually have a conversation. One of my friends is he's quite influential. He works for the same government organization that I was working for. It's called the Competition and Markets Authority. Basically, they regulate companies to try and stop monopolies in the private sector, right? So let's say let's say Asda wanted to buy Tesco, right?
Yeah.
They'd do a market review and they'd be like, okay, if Asda bought Tesco, then that company would have too much of a market share. Therefore, they'd be able to affect the prices negatively and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'd love to get him on. He's reluctant to come on, but I'd love to get him
quite
on.
Interesting.
Exactly. I think it'd be good to get him on. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I think the other thing, as you spoke about, and I think this is probably a good place, one of the good points to take from this podcast is that you said before that you have to change the habit before you change the behavior. The habit of government right now is something that's been entrenched in UK culture for however many years, right? Hundreds of years. So in order to break that habit is going to take a monumental shift. And I think that, as with anything, that monumental shift will probably also take hundreds and hundreds of years. And I don't know what your opinion, but I think that the best way to do that is, as you say, to educate your children, educate your friends, and educate yourself more than anything.
Yeah, how can I disagree with that? Yeah, education is the key. That's it.
Well, I think we'll probably end it there with education is the key. I think that's a brilliant place to end it. And look,
someone write that down.
Someone fucking write that down. Before we go, can you tell people who you are, where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you for PTs, how they can do all that good stuff?
Best name ever. So my Instagram is pretty much all you. It's at @GeorgeSmith_PT. So that's pretty easy. PT related, online coaching related, just send me a message or anything like that. And if I can help with, send me a message. But Instagram's pretty much all I use anyway. So that's pretty much all.
Perfect. Well, I will thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been a pleasure. It really has.
Pleasure.
I want to thank you personally because, we've never met in real life, whether people can hear that.
We'll have a role at some point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you started listening to the podcast because of Sean and the breakdowns and all that sort of stuff. And since then you've carried on listening. And that's something that I'm so grateful for. This is the way that this thing grows, right? Is that friends of people that I've had on, or friends of myself that listen and share it. That's the way this thing grows. So I'm really appreciative of you. I'm really appreciative of the content that you put out on Instagram and the good things that you're trying to do in this world. And obviously, thank you, man, very, very much for your time today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, man. It's been lovely.
Perfect. I'll speak to you soon.
See you on.